Friends and viewers, The Great Divorce, a novel by C.S. Lewis. So, the story of this novel starts like an unnamed narrator finds himself in a gray town waiting for a bus. He boards the bus along with a small number of other people, and the bus proceeds to fly over the gray town. The narrator then talks with some of the other people on the bus, some of whom remember dying in various ways. One man, EK, tells the narrator that the gray town is always getting bigger as more and more people enter it. Some of these people get closer to the bus stop so that one day they can drive away. Others drift further from the bus stop. Indeed, some people in Greytown must be millions of miles from the bus stop by now. The bus lands on a huge cliff, and the narrator and other passenger get out. They find that they have landed by a beautiful river surrounded by grass and trees. However, the narrator quickly discovers that everything in this place is motionless. Even the blades of grass are rigid and hard. This makes walking around very painful. The narrator also realizes that he no longer has a solid body. He and his peers are ghosts. The narrator slowly realizes that he is in the afterlife. As he realizes this, he sees a group of spirits approaching the ghost. The spirits are bright and have solid bodies. They have come to try to convince the goose to come with them toward the beautiful, majestic mountains in the distance. But most of the goose refuse to do so. The big goose notices that one of the spirits is lean, a man he knew while they were both alive. Lean killed a man and yet has become a spirit, while the big goose has led a supposedly virtuous life and yet was sent to the dreary grey town. Lean tries to convince the big goose to love, but the big goose refuses and walks back to the bus, eager to return to the grey town. The narrator witnesses other spirits trying to convince the goose to stay by the river, regain their solid bodies, and eventually climb to the top of the mountain. Each time, however, the goose refused to stay and walk back to the bus. Ike, who's eager to make a tidy profit in the grey town, picks golden apples from a tree and carries them back to the bus, causing himself great pain in the process. After another goose, the hard bitten goose tells the narrator to be careful and argues that the same people must control the river, the mountains, and the grey town. The hard bitten goose words fill the narrator with despair. Just as the narrator is thinking of returning to the bus, he sees the spirit of one of his favorite authors, George MacDonald. MacDonald greets the narrator cheerfully and promises to show him around. He explains the narrator has come on a vacation from hell, the great town to the valley to the shadow of life. There are many people in the great town who visit the valley and then return to the town forever. For these people, the great town is hell. But there are others who stay in the valley instead of returning to the great town. For these people, the great town is merely purgatory, a place for them to exist before they climb up to heaven. The people who are too stubborn to go to the mountains and love God. MacDonald explained are like stubborn children who'd rather be miserable than humble. For the rest of the book, MacDonald carries the narrator around the valley, showing him conversations between spirits and ghosts. In the first conversation, the narrator sees a spirit trying to convince the ghost of a famous artist to remain in the valley and to go to heaven. The artist arrogantly refuses, claiming that he couldn't stand to live in a place without personal property where his painting wouldn't be appreciated. MacDonald shows the narrator a female ghost who complains so much about her husband that she eventually disappears entirely. She is so consumed by pettiness and fusiness that she no longer has a soul. Another female ghost, Palm, argues with the spirit of her brother, Reginald, about her love for her dead child, Michael. Palm claims to love Michael so much that she couldn't love anyone else during her lifetime. Reginald argues that Palm must surrender her love for Michael in order to love God completely, and afterwards, Palm will be reunited with Michael in heaven forever. Palm refuses to give up her love for her son, though claiming that Reginald is being cruel. Another goose carries a tiny lizard on his shoulder. MacDonald explained to the narrator that this lizard is lust. Reluctantly, the goose always allows an angel to crush the lizard, freeing the goose from his burden to sexual desire. To the narrator's amazement, the lizard transforms into beautiful horse who gallops away with the goose, now a newborn man. Uh, uh, the newborn man toward the mountain. MacDonald explained that by surrendering our earthly desire, even for our loved one, human can become more beautiful, more powerful, and more loving than any ever thought possible. In the final chapter of the novel, MacDonald shows the narrator a beautiful spirit, Sarah Smith. Sarah's reunite with the man she once knew. Frank has become so embittered with self-hating that she separated into two ghosts, a tall tragedian ghost and a small dwarf ghost. This small goose, a bitter self-hating being, uses a heavy chain to control the goose, tall goose, an over-dramatic being who overacts whenever Sarah does something even mildly offensive. Sarah, speaking to the small goose, tries to tell Frank that he doesn't have to hate himself anymore. He's in a place of boundless love. The small goose is almost ready to laugh along with Sarah and stay in the valley. But instead he pulls his chain and tells Goose rages theatrically, accusing Sarah of having never loved him. The small goose shrinks until he is no longer visible at all. Then the tall goose disappears. Too, MacDonald explained to the narrator that Frank was trying to manipulate Sarah's pity and concern in order to pass along some of his own self-hated to Sarah. While it might seem cruel for Sarah to happy in Valley rather than spending her time pitying Frank, MacDonald insists that the saved should rejoice in their own salvation rather than pitying the damned. If it were otherwise, he argues, then people in hell would be able to blackmail people in heaven into feeling miserable. The narrator asks MacDonald if the people in the hell will remain in hell for all eternity or if one day God will free them and bring them to heaven. MacDonald says that heaven is open to all those who truly desire it. However, the narrator must not ask questions about what will happen to human beings In the future, it is the nature of human being to live in time, uncertain about their future possibilities, and for a human being to learn the mysteries of salvation would involve that human being standing outside of time and seeing the future, in other words, ceasing to be a human being. MacDonald illustrates this concept taking the narrator to a huge chessboard across which chess pieces move rapidly. The narrator suddenly wakes up. He's been sleeping in his study. So, this is the story of The Great Divorce, a novel by C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis was born, raised in Ireland. He then attended Oxford University, where it distinguished him as a scholar of English classic and philosophy. Lewis fought in World War One, and partly a result of carnage he witnessed. So, in C.S. Lewis taught at Cambridge University until his death in 1963. So the the book alludes to many famous work of Christian literature. Perhaps the most important such work is William Blake's The Marriage of Heaven and Hell in 1790 and 1797. Long poem, Blake constructs a complicated argument why good and evil are two sides of the same coin and equally necessary to life. Lewis disagreed with Blake's argument so strongly that he wrote The Great Divorce as a response to Blake, as the title suggests. Lewis wants to reiterate the difference between heaven and hell instead of blending them together. There are also many other literary allusions in the novel. So the spirit of author George MacDonald guides the narrator through the valley of shadow of life. The title of this novel is A Great Divorce, written in 1943-44, were written in London and Oxford, published in 1945. The genre of this novel is religious fiction, allegory, fantasy. Setting is the grey town, the valley of shadow of life. Climax of this novel is the game of chess. Antagonist of this novel is sin, hate, and pain could all be considered that antagonist of the novel, as Lewis sees it. And these concepts are different versions of same fundamental evil. So this is the novel by C.S. Lewis, The Great Divorce. I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you.